Okay, so this next video lecture is still the continuation of our Module 3, Ethics, Fraud, and Internal Control. So we are now still in the internal control concepts and techniques. So to continue, we have here the nested control objectives for the transaction. Okay, so for the transaction here, this is basically in relation to the segregation of duties, okay, to safeguard and make sure that the financial records will be accurate and reliable. So control objective 1 is authorization and processing should be segregated. So we mentioned that before in our previous video lecture, in which if you are the one who is authorizing a transaction, then you should not be the one to process it, because this will lead into fraud or manipulation. So that's why it should be segregated. Control objective 2 is for the segregation of authorization, custody, and recording. So here, if you are the one who authorizes the transaction, you should not be the one who is in custody of the asset, because again, manipulation and fraud will have an opportunity to happen. Okay, and at the same time, you should not also be the one to record it. That's why this is very important to segregate these three activity or responsibility. So separate person will be the one who authorized the transaction. A separate person will be responsible for the custody over the asset, and a separate person for recording these transactions. And for the control objective number 3, journals, subsidiary ledger, and general ledgers. So actually, in an accounting system, normally these 3 will be a responsibility of one person only. But if it's possible for the entity to divide also these responsibilities, then it's much better. Okay, so of course, this is to avoid any manipulation, but in most cases, this is usually done by one person. But of course, what is important in control objective number 3 is to have these journals available along with its subsidiary ledgers and general ledger, because this will provide the entity with the audit trail later on to detect any misstatement, error, or fraud. So this should be complete. So this is a sample control objective for our transaction. So the entity can also add to it depending on the nature and the need, okay, for their organization maybe. So we go now to the physical controls in the IT contexts. Okay, so because this was actually created because this is far different from that of the manual system. Okay, so here for the physical controls over our IT are the following. So first is transaction authorization. So here the rules are often embedded within the computer program. Okay, meaning this can be through the use of access pass, okay, and others. So we have here the just in time, for example, inventory system. So automated reordering of inventory without human intervention. Okay, so meaning if in the record the level of inventory for reordering is reached, then the computer will send a prompt that reorder should be taken place already without human intervention. So it can be programmed. Second is segregation of duties. In terms of segregation of duties, a computer program may perform any tasks that are deemed incompatible. Okay, because even in a single click, it can create many forms or report already, or it can affect many accounts. So that's why in IT environment, a computer can perform many tasks. Okay, a single computer can perform the task of many employees. Okay, so thus this is crucial, and there is really a need to separate program development, program operations, and maintenance to avoid manipulation and fraud also, and access of confidential information. For supervision, the ability to access competent sorry the ability to assess competent employees becomes more challenging due to the greater technical knowledge that is required. So that's why in most cases in an IT environment, there is limited personnel that who are well versed of the technicalities in IT. So that's why this becomes a problem or a need, a necessity. Okay, so that's one concern that the entity should address as well. Okay, for in terms of accounting records, so the ledger account, sometimes the source documents are kept magnetically, therefore there is no audit trail that is readily apparent. We all know that when transacting using computer, mobile, or using the web or the internet, source documents are not necessarily used. Okay, so they can proceed with the processing of transaction with or by clicking OK or other button that is available there. So therefore, because of this, audit trail is not available to the auditor, okay, to detect if indeed that transaction was supported or authorized or not. Okay, so that is another concern for the IT environment. So the address here is, or the answer here is to maintain still source documents even when having transactions over the web or over the computer. Okay. In terms of access control, data consolidation exposes the organization to computer fraud and excessive losses from disasters. This is one of the problems also in IT environment, because although there are access paths or access limitations, still there are hackers who are existing to and ready to anytime access those confidential data. So here, the entity should invest in effective and stronger anti-hack or virus software, plus the physical controls that they should maintain over their program or application that they use. Okay. In terms of verification, independent verification, when tasks are performed by the computer rather than manually, then there is a need for an independent check. Or the need, for an independent check is not necessary anymore. However, the programs themselves are being checked. So here, it is actually built in the computer program, okay, this independent verification. So there is no need for a manual independent check. However, the entity should at least monitor and evaluate the transactions that they process to make sure that indeed these are valid transactions. Okay, so those are the applicable physical controls in the IT context, which are much different and a little bit complicated compared to the manual system.